Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to this episode of Touring with Travis. My name's Travis Gilbert. I'm the educator and collections coordinator for the Old Baldy Foundation. And behind the camera here, we have Chris Webb, our executive director. We're hoping that your family is safe and healthy wherever you're riding out this storm. We're all going to get through this together, and we're all going to be back here meeting up for cocktails on Baldy Island, or mocktails if you're like Jace. We just got a comment from Kara, who's been one of our more dedicated listeners, saying that Pirate Jace is ready to hear about some pirates this afternoon. This is one of my favorite stories to share with folks when they visit Baldy Island, and that is the story of the Battle of the Sandbars that happened in late September 1718, right out behind me here in the mouth of the Cape Fear River. So if you're listening and you're following along on our Facebook Live, like I am right now, give us a shout out on the comments. We'd like to know where you're listening from. We'd love to know what your connection to Baldy Island is. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer those questions. Or if we can't answer it now, we're going to find an answer for you a little bit later and post the answer in the comments. So give us a shout out as we're telling you this story. So Stede Bonnet, not Steve with a V, Steed with a D. It's a peculiar name. Came from Barbados, down in the Caribbean. And you may know him by his nickname. It's the Gentleman Pirate. That's because he was a very wealthy sugarcane planter down in Barbados. He had a wife, he had several children, and in the spring of 1717, he outfits a sloop. He calls it the Revenge, and he sets off on the high seas to become a pirate. And the jury's still out on what would make this sugarcane planter become a pirate. Why would he abandon his family? Why would he forsake that lifestyle? And like I said, the jury's still out. No one knows for certain what drove Stede Bonnet to become a pirate. Now, you may be familiar with the most romanticized or the funniest notion on why he became a pirate, and that's this nagging wife theory. I'm not even kidding you. Story after story, historian after historian has told us that Stede Bonnet couldn't stand his wife, that he was trying to get out of town to get away from her nagging, and he decided, well, the best thing to do is just become a pirate and forget about her. Well, I don't really subscribe to that theory. Kevin Duffus doesn't really subscribe to that theory, a historian who wrote our book for our 200th anniversary at Old Baldy Lighthouse. There is a historian from the North Carolina Maritime Museum in Beaufort that I think that might be onto something. He says that Stede Bonnet was committing an 18th century version of fraud. There was a drought that year. The sugar cane plantation's not doing so well. So Stede Bonnet takes out a pretty substantial loan. And it seems like, to that historian, Stede Bonnet's trying to get out of town before the creditors can find him, before the bill comes. He doesn't want to pay that bill, and he commits fraud. He escapes. Who knows what drove Stede Bonnet to become a pirate? But we are for certain, in the spring of 1717, Stede Bonnet leaves Barbados on this ship called the Revenge, and he sets off on the high seas to become a pirate for about a year and a half. That's right, folks. This famous story of the golden age of piracy is all based on a little over a year and a half of events. Blackbeard, that famous pirate who we're going to speak about in a minute, he only committed about a year and a half of piracy out on the high seas. So these romanticized stories from the golden age of pirates just has a little short window in the grand scheme of things that we're basing all these legends off of. It's kind of peculiar. Mackie, I love these pirate stories. Thank you for choosing it for an afternoon tour. You're welcome, Mackie, and it's a beautiful day out here to be talking about pirates. So where does Stede Bonnet go in the spring and early summer of 1718? Well, he goes to the coast of Florida. You see, when the Spanish Empire controlled much of the Caribbean and much of South America, they would load up all the gold, all the profits that they had accumulated in the few months in the New World. They would board it onto an armada, a convoy of ships, if you will. And under the protection of several large warships, that convoy of ships would take off across the Atlantic Ocean and bring those treasures back to the Spanish Main, back to Europe. Well, in 1715, that convoy ran into trouble right off the coast of Florida. A very terrible storm found that convoy, and it wrecked a bunch of ships laden with gold. Killed about 1,000 sailors. So for these pirates in 1717, 1718, that was prime picking. They'd go to the coast of Florida where all these Spanish ships had wrecked, and they would dive, they would comb the beach, trying to pick up as much gold as they could. That's where Stede Bonnet goes. And then he travels a little bit northward. He captures a few ships off the coast of Charlestown. We know it today as Charleston, South Carolina. And after finding a few ships off the coast of South Carolina, we believe he comes into the mouth of the Cape Fear River because he needs to careen his ship, meaning that he needs to turn his ship onto its side and clean off the hull or the bottom of the ship. All kinds of barnacles would attach themselves onto the bottom of a ship, and it would slow it down. There are also worms that would attach themselves onto the bottom of these wooden ships and begin boring holes into the ship. And the last thing you want is a hole in the bottom of your ship. So every so often you need to careen your ship. You need to turn it on its side in a very shallow area. You need to scrape those barnacles off. You need to replace wood on the bottom of that ship to make sure the worms weren't boring holes and making your ship very leaky. And we believe after that action on the South Carolina coast, Stede Bonnet comes into the mouth of the Cape Fear River to careen his ship. And where did that occur here in the Cape Fear River? Well, no one knows for certain. He certainly wanted an area that was shallow enough at low tide where you could easily turn your ship over, and that at high tide, as the tide's creeping its way into the river, it's going to naturally refloat your ship. You want an area that has a sandy bottom, so you're not going to damage your ship when you turn it over. And you're also going to an area with a bunch of trees along the shoreline. So rather than just manually pulling your ship on its side, you're going to attach a block and tackle and rope, and you're going to use leverage with those trees, a pulley system, if you will, to turn your ship over. And we think, many historians at least believe, that an area called Bonnet's Creek or Bonnet's Point, just north of Southport, in between the modern-day town of Southport and Deep Point Marina, where you get on the ferry to get over here on Bald Head Island, that area along the western shore of the Cape Fear River is where Stede Bonnet performed this maintenance on his ship. Well, in the summer of 1717, he performs that maintenance on his ship. He leaves the mouth of the Cape Fear River, and we believe somewhere off the coast of Florida, he runs into a Spanish warship. He took off a little more than he could chew, and he gets into trouble. That Spanish warship whips Stede Bonnet. There are quite a few casualties. Stede Bonnet himself is a casualty, so he limps himself back into the Bahamas to outfit his ship once again, to nurse his wounds, to drop off his wounded, and begin another season of being a pirate out on the high seas. Tony Britt Kierkegaard is watching. Hey Tony, I hope downtown's doing well. Let's see any other comments here. Thanks for listening, folks. Give us a shout out on those comments. We have quite a few listeners on this beautiful afternoon. All right, go Travis. You are looking like a bit of a pirate out there with your hair blowing in the wind. Abby, I know, and I have finally accumulated enough treasure myself to shave off this quarantine beard, but I figured I might as well keep the beard until at least we're finished talking about pirates, and then I can appear tomorrow all clean and shaven for you. So, when Stede Bonnet goes back to the Bahamas to nurse his wounds after this battle with a Spanish warship somewhere off the coast of Florida, he meets this famous pirate known as Blackbeard. And Stede Bonnet and Blackbeard enter this partnership that's going to color the rest of this story for you all. Stede Bonnet is wounded again, so he allows Blackbeard to kind of commandeer his ship, the Revenge. Remember, Stede Bonnet's ship is called the Revenge. He takes the Revenge in the Bahamas. He allows this famous pirate called Blackbeard to take over that ship, to commandeer that ship. And with Stede Bonnet down in the cabin, apparently reading his books, going about the ship in his nightgown, nursing his wounds, Blackbeard kind of takes the reins and becomes the real leader for the rest of the story. They go now all through the Caribbean, taking loot, stealing ships, burning ships, and it is off the coast of Martinique, just north of Bermuda, where this story begins, that Blackbeard and Stede Bonnet aboard the Revenge come across a French slaver called the La Concorde. They capture that slave ship that had just arrived into the Caribbean from the west coast of Africa, and they christen this ship into what we all know as the Queen Anne's Revenge. This is the most famous of all pirate ships in North America. Blackbeard climbs aboard this new ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge. He gives Stede Bonnet the captainship of the Revenge, and they set off for North America after tramping around the Caribbean for just a few more months. And it's when they arrive back in North America, back off the coast of South Carolina, that they perform the most celebrated of feats in this golden age of piracy. They blockade the coast of South Carolina. They blockade the port of Charlestown, South Carolina, taking captive many prominent citizens of that town, all for a chest of medicine. They're not looking for gold, not looking for silver. All they want is a chest of medicine from those Charlestonians. After getting their medicine, this is in early June of 1718, they find themselves off the bar at a place we know of Beaufort, North Carolina. And when I mean bar, not a place where you're ordering beers or cocktails, but this sandbar right off the coast of a port. And it's right there off the coast of what they knew as Old Topsail Inlet or Beaufort Port that Blackbeard accidentally runs that flagship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, aground on a sandbar. They're stuck. They can't get the Queen Anne's Revenge off of this sandbar. They're stationary. So Blackbeard convinces Stede Bonnet to take a smaller ship, go through the inland waters of North Carolina to a place called Bath, North Carolina, where North Carolina's governor, Charles Eden, is located. And Stede Bonnet is going to plead for a pardon from Governor Eden. You see, King George I had issued a mass pardon for pirates. That pardon said after a certain date in early January 1718, all acts of piracy before January 1718 would be forgiven if pirates just gave themselves up. Well, remember, they had blockaded the coast of Charlestown in June of 1718. So that's just a few more months after all was forgiven by the king. But Stede Bonnet's still thinking, well, maybe they'll just excuse use all those trepidations that we did after January 1718. And he was correct. Governor Charles Eden gives Stede Bonnet that pardon. And when Stede Bonnet retraces his steps from Bath, North Carolina, back to modern-day Beaufort, North Carolina, with his pardon from the governor, Blackbeard's nowhere to be found. You see, Blackbeard didn't accidentally run the flagship Queen Anne's Revenge aground on a sandbar. Blackbeard, on purpose, ran that ship aground on a sandbar. And as soon as Stede Bonnet was out of eyesight, Blackbeard took off with all their accumulated treasure, and he himself disappeared. It was all a trick to get rid of Stede Bonnet and dozens of pirates. Think like Blackbeard. The less pirates you have aboard your ship, the more treasure there is for you in the end. So it was all a trick, and Stede Bonnet fell right into the trap. Well, Stede Bonnet, he's seeking some revenge now. He sets off aboard the Revenge looking for Blackbeard. He cannot find Blackbeard. They go off to the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. They steal some more ships. They accumulate more treasure with his pardon that now is definitely worthless. And once again, he needs to careen his ship. It's hurricane season, this late summer of 1718. He needs to clean the hull of the Revenge one last time. So he comes back to his old stomping grounds. He comes back to the mouth of the Cape Fear River to once again turn his ship over, clean its hull, and wait out the hurricane season that we southeastern North Carolinians know can be pretty dangerous. Hey, listen out there, folks. If you're listening in, give us a shout out in the comments. We'd love to know where you're listening from, what your connection to Bald Head Island is. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments. We'll find an answer for you.
Hi, Johnny Kessler Sexton.
Hey, Johnny. Hey, how's it going? We haven't heard from you in a while. It's a great artist.
That's Chris, is the artist.
Oh.
Yes,
Pardon me.
yes. Don't confuse.
So in our story, we're now in August of 1718. Stede Bonnet has been tricked by Blackbeard. He's found himself here into the mouth of the Cape Fear River. He's cleaning the hull of his ship. He's waiting hurricane season out. And in late September 1718, just as Stede Bonnet was ready to leave the river and go off to steal more ships and commit more acts of piracy, two ships appear out there on the horizon in the Atlantic Ocean. Stede Bonnet's curious. Are these merchant ships that are falling into his trap? Are they full of supplies that there's money to be made from? So Stede Bonnet, while he's anchored upriver, he sends some crew members aboard some canoes to go scope these two ships out that appear on the horizon. Very quickly, those crew members aboard those canoes come racing back to Stede Bonnet. They say they are not merchant vessels. They are well-armed ships. And we don't know who they are, but they've clearly come to wage battle. Stede Bonnet had run right into pirate hunters. They're under the command of Colonel William Rhett. There are almost 200, between 150 and 200 pirate hunters aboard these two ships. One is called the Henry and one is called the Sea Nymph. They are from Charlestown, South Carolina, and they have not forgotten what Stede Bonnet did just a few months earlier in the early summer of 1718. And Stede Bonnet is now trapped because the two pirate hunter ships are dead in his path of escape out the Cape Fear River. So Stede Bonnet comes up with a battle plan. As soon as the morning sun rises, he is going to board everybody on the Revenge, and he is going to make a mad dash out the Cape Fear River using the falling tide to his advantage to propel him past the two pirate hunter ships and out to safety in the Atlantic Ocean. Colonel William Rhett is coming up with a battle plan himself. He is going to position his ships in a pincher movement to trap Stede Bonnet in the river and force Stede Bonnet either to surrender or to wage battle. And on the late September day, 1718, history will forever know it as the Battle of the Sandbars, because both Stede Bonnet and Colonel William Rhett's two ships, the Henry and the Sea Nymph, accidentally run their ships aground on sandbars. So all 5 hours of this battle are fought with all three ships stuck in the mud, stuck in the sand. They're unable to move. Fortunately for Stede Bonnet, when his ship runs aground on a sandbar, it is turned so the deck of the ship is facing away from the pirate hunters. It's almost like a wall now. So if the top of my hand is the deck of the ship, it's run aground opposite. So now the men can look over the rail of the ship and use it almost as a parapet or a wall. Unfortunately for Colonel William Rhett, the Sea Nymph, one of his ships, crashes aground on a sandbar out of range. So it is now a passive observer of the Battle of the Sandbars. His other ship, the Henry, runs aground on a sandbar close enough to the pirates that they can actively wage battle. But unfortunately, its ship crashes aground on sandbar so that the ship is facing all the pirates. So rather than acting as a parapet or a wall, its deck is exposed to the pirates. So for the pirate hunters and Colonel William Rhett, they are forced to hide behind anything on that deck to shield them from this small arms fire that is being exchanged back and forth between the Henry and the pirate hunters and the Revenge and the pirates under Stede Bonnet. Well, fortunately for Colonel William Rhett, he's further downstream when he gets stuck on that sail. And Colonel William Rhett knows in about 5 hours, naturally, that tide is going to start coming into the river. And whichever ship is stuck further downstream, that naturally is going to be the ship that is unmoored or released from the sandbar by that rising tide. So for Colonel William Rhett, he's just got to wait out this small arms fire. And of course, within 5 hours, that's exactly what happens. One by one, the Sea Nymph and then the Henry are released from the sandbar by the rising tide. And while poor Stede Bonnet and all his pirates are still stuck on that sandbar, Colonel William Rhett goes in and captures all the pirates. They spend a few days fixing all the ships here in the mouth of the Cape Fear River, and eventually they take them back down to Charlestown. They put Stede Bonnet and all his pirates on trial. Of course, the entire crew is found guilty of piracy. Stede Bonnet's pardon from Governor Eden is worthless in the eyes of these South Carolinians. And on December the 10th, 1718, Stede Bonnet is hanged in what is now downtown Charlestown. And reportedly, his body is thrown or buried into the marsh beyond the town's walls. Now, what happened to his partner in crime, Blackbeard, after Blackbeard's trick off of Beaufort, North Carolina? Well, Blackbeard eventually finds his way to Bath, North Carolina, and he gets a pardon from Governor Eden, just as Stede Bonnet got his pardon. But to the eyes of some Virginians, that pardon is worthless, and Blackbeard is going to die at the hands of Virginians at Ocracoke, North Carolina, just a few days before Stede Bonnet is hanged in Charlestown. Thus ends two of these most romanticized, famous pirates of this golden age of piracy. And our little slice of North Carolina here on Bald Head Island has a direct link with the death of one of those pirates. Now, the million-dollar question is, did Blackbeard's Stede Bonnet ever set foot on Bald Head Island? Are there treasures here waiting to be found on Bald Head Island? Well, I hate to burst your bubble. There is no historical evidence to suggest that Stede Bonnet or Blackbeard ever set foot on Bald Head Island, ever deposited their treasure here on Bald Head Island. Is it likely? Probably not. Could it have occurred? Maybe. There's a slight chance. But the historical record sure is mum on whether they ever stepped foot here on Bald Head Island. But not very far within eyesight of our little island is where Stede Bonnet met his demise. I'm going to check Facebook here and see what's going on our Facebook page. Andrea Williams, love these history lessons. Both of you are doing great. We are listening from Bahama, North Carolina, and hope we can visit Bald Head Island again. Hey, we sure hope that you can visit Bald Head Island again very, very soon, Andrea. Thanks for listening. Mackie, I don't think Stede Bonnet was the sharpest tack in the box. Wonder how he became so successful in Barbados. I'm thinking that plantation and unfortunately the labor of a lot of enslaved Africans made him successful down there in Barbados. Kathy Gilbert, I love that son of mine and his history. Mom, I love you too. Brent, wish I was there. Beautiful day. Brent, it is a beautiful day, and we wish you were here as well. We hope very, very soon all this can end and you can come back to Bald Head Island. Hey, Tony. It's good to see you. I hope you're taking care of downtown of me. That treasure is buried on Bluff Island, Mr. Grant. Hey, well, who knows? Captain Charlie, our most probably famous lighthouse keeper, he went to his dying day saying that he would continue to look for pirate treasure buried somewhere in this island complex. So, Mr. Grant, I would pick up a shovel as long as we're not digging in the sand. I'll help you out. As long as we go halvesies on the treasure, I'll help you look for it. Kara, fascinating. Jace loves it. We agree with Mackie. Hey, great, Kara. Thanks for listening. And hopefully we'll see you, Brent. Yeah, we hope to see you too. Come say hello by the lighthouse. So that is the story of the Battle of the Sandbars. Hopefully a less romanticized story, a little bit more of a story based on fact. So there are very few primary sources that we have available to help illuminate the story of Stede Bonnet and his partners in crime. But we do have two really great books in our gift shop that we definitely can send to you wherever you're self-isolating. Of course, there is a great chapter on Stede Bonnet and the Battle of the Sandbars in our book, The Story of Cape Fear on Bald Head Island, written by Kevin Duffus. And we can send this book to you if you visit oldbaldy.org. We have an online shop on that new website. Also, if you email Jess, Jess, at oldbaldy.org, she can help you purchase this book. And if you get a hold of her before 3 p.m., any day but Sunday, same day shipping for you. And then if you want to delve into more than just a chapter about Stede Bonnet and Blackbeard the pirate, this is a wonderful, well-researched book that separates fact from fiction, which sometimes can be very hard to do when we're talking about pirates. It is called The Last Days of Blackbeard the Pirate. It is also written by Kevin Duffus. It talks a lot about Stede Bonnet and it really shows you the story of Blackbeard based in fact rather than fiction. So both those books can be purchased via our website or again by emailing Jess, Jess, at oldbaldy.org. So I don't see any more comments. Folks, thanks for listening. You're listening into the future. Leave us a comment, leave us a question. We'll get back to you. If you're looking to watch some of our previous broadcasts, there are 3 ways to do so. You can find them on our Facebook page where you're watching this video. You can go to our Instagram, watch them on Instagram TV, or you can also visit our YouTube channel. And when you visit that YouTube channel, hit subscribe, help us out, build our social media presence. So I talked about, we have a brand new website. Our other staff members who are less inclined about history have been working just as hard to increase our website presence and our social media presence. So check out that brand new website for us. When you're at our website, check out our events and programs page. There you're going to find information about our historic happy hour on April the 8th. We would be having it at the Lighthouse with the beer and wine that we provide, but due to this pandemic, we were going to bring that happy hour to you virtually through GoToMeeting. You can find information on how to sign up for that historic happy hour on our website. Tickets are usually $15. We're going to bring this program to you virtually free. But if you would like to give us a $15 donation in lieu of that virtually free program, we very much appreciate your support. We're going to be talking about the history and the legacy of the boathouse that we lost during Hurricane Florence in 2018. So on behalf of the Old Baldy Foundation, thank you for listening. We sincerely hope that your family is safe, that you all are healthy, and we're all in this together. We'll see you as soon as this pandemic ends here on beautiful Baldy Island. Take care, folks. We'll see you tomorrow for some new episodes.